So imagine you've spent, I don't know, an entire year planning the biggest live entertainment convention your region has ever seen.
Right, which is a massive logistical undertaking on its own.
Exactly. You've convinced hundreds of people from across the country to buy tickets. You've booked headlining performers. You've got these incredibly elaborate banquets planned out.
Lots of moving parts.
So many. And then, less than 2 months before opening night, an apocalyptic hurricane slams directly into your city.
Oh, man.
Yeah. The main venue, the hotel where everything is supposed to happen, is suddenly sitting under 8 feet of toxic floodwater.
I mean, for anyone who has ever organized so much as a dinner party, let alone a multi-day convention, that is just the ultimate nightmare scenario.
Right.
The logical move there is to cancel, refund whatever money you haven't spent, and maybe try again in a few years when the city has actually rebuilt.
Well, the people we are diving into today, they did not cancel. They actually doubled down.
Which is pretty wild to think about.
It really is. So today on this deep dive, we're taking you back to 1953 and 1954, specifically to Providence, Rhode Island. We're opening up the historical archives of a publication called The Linking Ring.
Yeah, that was the official magazine for the International Brotherhood of Magicians, or the IBM.
Right. And our focus today is squarely on the vibrant, kind of quirky, and fiercely resilient members of the local IBM Ring 44.
It is a spectacular window into a highly specific subculture at the absolute height of its golden age.
Yeah, it really is.
Our mission today is to look past the top hats and the wands to understand what made this specific community in Rhode Island so unbreakable. We want to look at how they bridged these massive generational divides and how they managed to pull off the record-breaking 17th Annual New England Magicians Convention against literally impossible odds.
Because when you read through these monthly dispatches from Ring 44, which, by the way, was formerly named after one of their local legends, the William E. Baker Ring, you realize very quickly that this wasn't just like a casual group of hobbyists meeting in a basement to practice card tricks.
No, not at all.
The level of devotion they had to each other goes way beyond a shared interest.
The magic almost feels like a secondary byproduct of their fellowship, honestly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
What emerges from the pages of The Linking Ring is a portrait of a deeply intertwined social safety net. You see it in how they elevated each other. Like during their December 1953 meeting, they threw this massive surprise party for their namesake, Bill Baker.
Oh, the This Is Your Life party.
Exactly. They modeled the whole night after that popular TV show, projecting slides that made their local veteran magicians look like literal Hollywood motion picture idols.
They treated their own like absolute royalty. But, celebrating each other when times are good is easy. The mechanism that really caught my attention in the sources was their massive emphasis on what they called the Sick and Convalescent Committee.
Right, yeah.
If you were a member of this club and you fell ill, the entire administrative weight of the organization just shifted to support you.
That committee was a defining feature of the organization nationwide, but Ring 44 really took it to another level. They had a national chairman who aggressively lobbied members every single month to send cards and letters to any magician on the sick list.
And it worked. There's this report about a Reverend Otis Mason, a member from a neighboring town who falls seriously ill.
Oh, I remember reading about him.
Yeah, and at the January meeting, the club scribe reports that Reverend Mason received hundreds of individual get-well cards from IBM members. Hundreds.
That's incredible.
When he finally recovers and walks back into the meeting, he stands up and proudly declares the IBM is the greatest organization in the world. And you can just feel the sincerity in the text. He truly meant it.
Well, if you look at the economics and the psychology of being a performance artist in the 1950s, you start to understand why this level of care was so critical.
How so?
For many of these guys, performing was a gig economy before the gig economy existed. If you were sick, you couldn't perform. If you couldn't perform, you had no income and, honestly, no relevance.
That makes a lot of sense.
So this letter writing campaign functioned as a kind of decentralized psychological insurance policy.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. I mean, imagine you are an independent contractor today and you get hospitalized. Your professional network probably isn't sending you hundreds of handwritten letters to ensure you don't feel forgotten.
Definitely not.
Ring 44 was creating this analog support system that told its members, you have value beyond what you can do on stage. You see that dedication in the people running the club, too.
Oh, like Elsie Harrison?
Yes. A woman named Elsie Harrison retires as the ring secretary. She gets this massive standing ovation for years of grueling administrative work. And instead of taking a break, she immediately takes on the arguably much worse, much more stressful job of convention secretary for their massive upcoming event.
The labor these members volunteered was staggering. Elsie's husband, Charles Harrison Sr., was also honored with a handsomely engraved past president's wand for his endless service.
And then he gets sick, right?
Yeah. A few months later, he ends up on the sick list himself. And that entire machinery of care gears up to support him. It creates a fascinating feedback loop. To sustain a local club of performance artists, you need immense vulnerability.
Because you're standing up in front of your peers, exposing your methods, trying out new routines.
And risking total embarrassment.
Right. You can't do that if you think the people in the audience are just waiting for you to fail.
Precisely. You need absolute trust. And that trust wasn't built by doing flawless magic tricks. It was built by sending those hundreds of get-well cards.
Right, putting the work in off stage.
Exactly. By proving month after month that they had each other's backs off the stage, they created the psychological safety necessary to take risks on the stage.
And I think that rock-solid foundation of trust is the only way to explain how Ring 44 managed to solve one of the hardest problems in literally any art form, which is passing the torch to the next generation without dropping it.
Yeah, they successfully bridged a massive generational divide that would have torn other clubs apart.
Because magic is, at its core, an oral and visual tradition, right?
It is. You can't learn timing or showmanship from a book. It has to be passed down from mentor to student. Ring 44 understood this perfectly. They engineered their meetings to force the old guard and the new blood into the exact same space.
The contrast is just staggering when you read about it. Consider their old-timers night. The entertainment director hands the post-meeting show over to a veteran who introduces 6 acts of classic seasoned magicians.
And the scribe notes an incredible statistic there.
Yes, the combined ages of the performers on stage that single night totaled exactly 563 years.
Over half a millennium of collective magical experience concentrated in one room. You have performers doing classic vaudeville routines, sleight of hand with cigarettes, the classic egg bag trick.
Oh, and Arthur A.A. Allman producing a live bird cage out of thin air and then cutting a silhouette of Abraham Lincoln out of paper.
Classic. It's the golden age of stage magic, carefully preserved.
But before those 563 years of experience even set foot on the stage, you know who the very first act of the night was?
John Kearns Jr.
Yes, a 14-year-old boy. Just imagine you were 14 and you have to get up and perform the egg-to-cocktail glasses trick in front of men who have been perfecting their sleight of hand since before your parents were even born.
The pressure would be immense, but the club's scribe writes about that moment with such reverence. He specifically notes that seeing this teenager open the old-timer's night brought to mind the biblical quotation, "And a little child shall lead them."
They weren't patronizing this kid at all.
Not even a little. They were treating him as the literal future of their arc.
And they gave the youth real power. A few months later, they handed an entire after-meeting show over to the teenagers.
The teen takeover.
Yeah, 2 young members, Arthur Andrews and Paula Vasseur, they entirely ran the entertainment for the night. They performed what the archives call blackout bits, which, for anyone unfamiliar with old theater terms, is basically rapid-fire sketch comedy, where the stage lights instantly cut to black right on the punchline.
It's a great format.
It is. Paul did a physical comedy routine playing a bumbling student trying to follow instructions from a giant magic book. And Arthur closed the night with a completely original method for the card in the balloon trick.
You know, handing the main stage over to teenagers for an entire evening is a profound structural decision.
Yeah.
From a modern corporate perspective, giving the reins to the least experienced people in the room seems like an unnecessary risk.
No, really.
But in the context of a legacy art form, Ring 44 was guaranteeing its own survival. They understood that if magic was going to evolve, the younger generation needed stage time.
They needed the space to fail.
Exactly. They needed the space to fail, they needed the space to innovate, and crucially, they needed to do it in front of the masters who could actually guide them.
It goes right back to that safety net. The old-timers provided the historical standard and the technique, and the teenagers provided the vital, fearless new energy.
A perfect balance.
And it was exactly this alchemy, the wisdom of the elders combined with the audacity of the youth, that gave Rhode Island's Ring 44 the muscle to attempt something massive.
Which brings us to the 17th Annual New England Magicians Convention. This was an incredibly ambitious undertaking, And it was a joint effort between William E. Baker Ring 44 and another local magic assembly named after C. Foster Fenner.
Which, by the way, I actually love that they named their local chapters after their own members who were still alive and actively performing. They didn't wait for people to become history to honor them.
Yeah, that's a really nice touch.
But organizing a regional convention requires a very specific kind of visionary leadership. And they found that in a man named H. Adrian Smith, who they appointed as general chairman.
He was a character.
Reading his updates in the archives, H. Adrian Smith reads exactly like a modern venture capitalist or like a tech startup founder.
The comparison is actually very apt if you look at the function he served. He wasn't just managing logistics, he was manufacturing momentum.
He really was. He's pitching this grand vision, rallying this massive team of unpaid volunteers, and aggressively marketing his product. The archives literally describe him as a go-getter who knows what he wants and gets it.
And he locked in the convention registration fee at exactly $12.
Which I have to push back on for a second. $12 in 1954 is the equivalent of about $130 today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, asking hundreds of hobbyists to mail a $130 check to a local club months in advance is a massive financial ask.
It was a huge risk. If the marketing failed, the local rings would be on the hook for the hotel, the banquets, the talent. That's why Smith's relentless pressure was necessary.
He had to hustle.
He did, month after month. He used the magazine to hammer the attendees, basically saying, mail your check right now, do not wait. He had to build the capital to secure the infrastructure.
And he had a brilliant eye for branding to help sell those tickets. They didn't just use standard, hello, my name is paper name tags. They designed a unique convention badge featuring a jeweled pin.
I love the design of this pin.
It's so good. The imagery on the pin was a rabbit pulling a tiny magician out of a top hat.
It's a fantastic subversion of the most worn-out cliché in magic.
Right.
By putting that image on their badges, posters, and newspaper ads, they were signaling a very specific tone to potential attendees. It told you, we respect the craft enough to organize a massive event, but we don't take ourselves so seriously that we can't have fun. It was a brand promise.
But the startup founder's grand vision was about to slam headfirst into a very harsh reality. Planning a massive multi-day event with hundreds of attendees is a logistical nightmare under perfect conditions.
And these were not perfect conditions.
No. Ring 44 had to execute their plan against the backdrop of literal natural disasters.
This is the pivotal moment where the story shifts from being a charming chronicle of a mid-century hobbyist club to a genuine study in human resilience.
Less than 2 months before the convention was scheduled to open in October, Hurricane Carol made direct landfall in Rhode Island.
The devastation was just catastrophic.
It really was. The Sheraton Biltmore Hotel, which was their central venue for the banquets and the stage shows, was completely flooded. We are talking about 8 feet of water sitting inside the building.
The logistical infrastructure of Providence was completely crippled. And as the convention dates finally approached and the city was still digging out, a second storm, designated Hurricane Number 4, threatened to strike Rhode Island on the exact weekend of the convention.
The sheer anxiety H. Adrian Smith and Elsie Harrison must have felt is unimaginable. All that volunteer labor, all those $12 checks, seemingly about to be washed away twice.
It's stressful just thinking about it.
But miraculously, the second hurricane veered off. And despite the chaos, despite the fact that their venue had been an indoor swimming pool just weeks prior, the convention wasn't just a success. It was a regional triumph.
They shattered attendance records. They registered 424 attendees, which Smith proudly noted was likely the largest registration for any regional magic convention up to that point in history.
The guests arrived completely unbothered by whatever inconveniences the recovering city presented. They were just thrilled to be together. And the way they kicked off the weekend on Friday night is legendary. They called it the night before party.
Let's look at the psychology of that opening night, because the details are deeply revealing about how this community processed trauma.
Okay, so they transformed the ballroom of this recently flooded hotel into a gay 90s theme.
Right, which for anyone unfamiliar with that term, it refers to a nostalgia for the 1890s.
Think Victorian beer halls, barbershop quartets, men in dandy suits with handlebar mustaches, and women wearing elaborate dresses pulled straight from their grandmother's attic trunks.
It's a whole vibe.
It really is. They served ample amounts of real beer, and the scribe notes the food trays were as inexhaustible as the magician's bottle of yore. Basically, they never ran out.
And running the entertainment was a member named Charles Roscom, acting as the MC, but he wasn't wearing a standard tuxedo. He was wearing chin whiskers, and playing a folksy character named Uncle Zeke.
Just managing a chaotic lineup of novelty acts, jugglers, and fire eaters.
It's pure, unadulterated escapism.
But here is where the night takes a turn that initially made zero sense to me. After all the live acts, they transition to a movie screening. First, they make history by showing a full-length 1922 silent film starring Harry Houdini called The Man from Beyond.
And it's a massive hit with the crowd.
Oh yeah, Houdini is escaping, acting like a superhero on screen. Everyone is cheering.
The perfect thematic cap to an evening of magic and survival.
Exactly. But then, a local photographer named Dick Bromley takes the projector, and he decides to show his own Kodachrome color home movies.
And what are these movies of?
They are raw, unflinching footage of the absolute havoc and devastation that Hurricane Carol had just inflicted on Rhode Island weeks earlier. The flooded streets, the destroyed buildings.
And the impact on the audience was immediate.
Yeah, the scribe explicitly writes that the hurricane footage scared everyone into leaving to reconvene in the card room. Now, I have to stop and ask, why on earth would you do that? Your city was just destroyed. Your venue was underwater. People's lives and businesses were severely disrupted. You are finally having a great time, drinking beer, celebrating Houdini's escapes, and you deliberately choose to project home movies of the hurricane that almost ruined everything.
It seems like a terrible idea.
It seems incredibly tone-deaf to traumatize your guests at a party.
If you view it purely as a party foul, yes, it seems inexplicable. But if you consider the underlying mechanism of what a magic convention actually is, it becomes a profoundly therapeutic act.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Think about the fundamental nature of the illusions they study. Magic is the art of attempting to control the uncontrollable, defying gravity, making solid objects pass through each other, escaping from padlocked water tanks. It is all about asserting human will over the laws of nature.
Okay, I'm tracking with you.
A hurricane is the ultimate uncontrollable force. It humbled their city and literally filled the building they were standing in with toxic water. By projecting that hurricane footage on the wall in that specific room, surrounded by 400 of their trusted peers, they were doing something deeply psychological. They were taking away the storm's power.
Oh, wow. They are shrinking the disaster down to a reel of film that they can control.
Precisely. They are looking the monster right in the eye in full color and implicitly saying, "We survived this, the water receded, we are standing in the very room you tried to destroy, and our show still went on."
That is so powerful.
It wasn't killing the vibe, it was the ultimate collective escape act. Houdini escaped from the ice on the movie screen, and Ring 44 proved they'd escaped from the hurricane in real life. Once they proved that to themselves, they could comfortably move to the card room and get back to the magic.
That completely changes how I view that moment. It's a psychological triumph over adversity, made possible entirely because they were surrounded by that safety net we talked about earlier. They didn't watch the footage alone, they watched it together.
And that brings us to the core of what made Rhode Island's Ring 44 so remarkable in 1953 and 1954. The real magic wasn't the secret to the egg-to-cocktail glasses trick. The real magic was the infrastructure of the community itself.
Yeah, the story of this specific group isn't just a quaint historical footnote about men doing sleight of hand. It is a blueprint for how a community sustains itself.
Absolutely.
This was a highly organized, intergenerational fraternity that supported its most vulnerable members with hundreds of letters. It was a group that guaranteed its own future by giving 14-year-olds the stage alongside 70-year-old masters.
And it was a team that stared down 8 feet of floodwater to throw the most successful defiant party in New England magic history.
They understood intuitively that their art form could only survive if the people practicing it felt secure, supported, and connected.
The fellowship was the engine, the illusions were just the exhaust.
Which leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. If you want to learn a magic trick right now, you don't need to join a local brotherhood. You don't have to wait for an old-timers night, and you don't have to risk failing in front of a live audience.
No, you really don't.
You can simply pull up a video on your phone, find a tutorial, and learn the secret to a card trick in under 3 minutes. The efficiency of acquiring information today is staggering.
The barrier to entry for knowledge has been completely removed.
But as you picture those 563 years of collective experience standing on a single stage in Providence, Rhode Island, and as you think about the hundreds of handwritten get-well cards arriving at the bedside of a sick performer, ask yourself, in our rush to acquire information so efficiently, what kind of profound everyday magic are we losing by no longer having a Ring 44 to share it in?